there, you're watching All 24 News World News Program, and these are tonight's top stories. Army General Shangri-La leads tactical exercise in southern region, while Algeria pledges African solutions for Africa's problems. Also on our news tonight, dozens of martyrs in Zionist massacres in Khan Younis and northern Gaza Strip, as the International Court of Justice continues hearings on the occupation's humanitarian obligations. Coming up as well, activists warn of Zionist infiltration in Moroccan universities, students and unions demand an end to normalization. And later on, Russia rejects truce extension, threatens NATO with nukes, and Zelensky accuses Moscow of manipulation. The full report says straight ahead. Welcome back to the program. First off, in our news tonight, Minister Delegate to the Minister of Defense and Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, General Saeed Shangri-La, oversaw a tactical live-fire exercise near Ain Aminas on Tuesday, assessing troops in realistic combat scenario. Ground and air units demonstrated precision maneuvers with modern weapon systems, confirming the military's operational readiness in desert operations. The exercise, part of regular training programs, showcased the force's ability to execute complex missions in Algeria's southern terrain. During the tactical drill near Ain Aminas, Army General Saeed Shangri-La urged troops to build on recent successes to boost operational capabilities in the sensitive border region. Shangri-La emphasized the need for continuous improvement in tactical performance during his address to soldiers. He added that these results must serve as a foundation for strengthening the Army's combat effectiveness. On a different note now, Algeria assumed its seat on the African Union Peace and Security Council following a decisive election win, reflecting its strong diplomatic standing. Algeria pledged to intensify efforts in mediating continental conflicts through African-led solutions, building on its history of peacekeeping initiatives. Salman Seb has more details in this report.
Following a well-deserved victory, Algeria begins its new term on the African Union's Peace and Security Council, having earned the confidence of member states, a testament to its prominent diplomatic role in Africa and beyond. By officially assuming its seat, Algeria reaffirms its commitment to resolving continental crises and advancing peace through an African-led approach rooted in dialogue and cooperation.
This election represents a prominent recognition by the brotherly African countries of the active, important and outstanding role of Algerian diplomacy in promoting the values of peace and fostering consultation among countries to find solutions to the crisis facing our continent, in accordance with the high directives of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdul, which have enabled Algeria to regain its true standing at the continental level.
Over the next 3 years, Algeria will leverage its long-standing experience in conflict resolution, counter-terrorism, and support just causes to promote lasting solutions to political and security challenges across the continent.
Algeria, God willing, is beginning its membership in this important and essential council for the structure of peace and security within the African Union in a continental and international geopolitical context that requires intense pressure and joint work with all member states of the Peace and Security Council of the African Union in order to find lasting solutions to the conflicts, wars, and problems faced by many African countries, as well as to defend just causes.
Its election is widely seen as recognition of its active role in unifying African voices and mediating regional disputes.
The People's Democratic Republic of Algeria is not new to the issues of peace and security on our continent, having itself made a substantive contribution in this field for the cause of stability of our continent right from the early days when we were struggling for independence. It would be reminded of us that Algeria is the home of the most successful annual high-level seminar of Peace and Security Council in Africa, known as the Oran process.
This renewed mandate strengthens Algeria's position as a key diplomatic player, enabling it to help shape Africa's security strategies through its expertise in national reconciliation, fighting extremism, and fostering regional stability.
Still with Algeria-related news, speaking at the Oxford Center on Monday, the Dean of the Great Mosque of Algiers, Sheikh Mohammed Al-Mamoun Al-Qasim Al-Hassani, highlighted the relevance of Amir Abdul peaceful thought in addressing today's global challenges. He described the Emir's legacy as a guiding light for fostering understanding and harmony, urging the international community to build relations rooted in mutual respect.
His destiny was not merely to be a scholar, a thinker, or a Sufi, but also a war leader and exceptional strategist in the context of the epic resistance to the French invasion. He understood from the very beginning that the resistance to the occupation was not only military struggle, but also spiritual, moral, and cultural resistance. The Emir's insistence on human treatment of prisoners, on respect for non-Muslims, and even on the protection of civilians during wartime, earned the admiration of all who knew him, whether directly or by repetition, including his European adversaries. His respect for the humanitarian law, even before this concept existed in modern international law, secured him a prominent place in the conscience of history.
Meanwhile, Oxford University's Dr. Adil Malik called for greater recognition of Amir Abdul not just an Algerian hero, but as a global figure in Islamic thought and interfaith dialogue.
The Oxford Center for Islamic Studies organized a conference last year on Algeria's economy and the development challenges that Algeria faces. We want to mainstream the study of Amir Abdul for Islamic studies, for the study of the Muslim world, because we believe that Amir Abdul is not just a figure for Algeria. He has immense relevance for Muslim societies and indeed for interfaith relations.
Moving on to Europe now, electricity has been fully restored across much of Spain and Portugal after a major outage on Tuesday left millions without power, including Madrid and Lisbon. Grid operators in both countries confirmed that systems are now stable and fully operational. The blackout disrupted transport businesses and key services before technicians resolved the issue. Authorities have launched an investigation into the cause, which remains unclear. Energy officials reassured the public that all power stations and substations are now functioning normally. Similarly, the sudden outage cut 60% of Spain's electricity within seconds on Monday, affecting both Spain and Portugal. Prime Minister Sanchez denied opposition claims linking to the failure to nuclear shortages, calling them political exploitation. Power is now restored as authorities probe the cause, including possible cyber or grid failures.
And at the same time, as you know, in terms of cybersecurity, the National Cryptologic Center is already examining the risks arising from this electricity emergency, and the computerized records of the electricity grid and also of the private operators are already being examined so as not to rule out any hypothesis.
Shifting focus to Gaza, at least 16 Palestinians, including children, were killed and dozens injured in occupation shelling on Khan Younis in southern Gaza Strip early Tuesday. 10 among them, 5 children, were killed when artillery struck tents sheltering displaced people in Al-Iqlimi near Al-Mawasi area. 6 more were killed in Qizan al-Najjar area Meanwhile, at least 11 others were killed in air raids across northern Gaza Strip. Medical sources reported 4 murders on Salah ad-Din Street, 3 in At-Tufah, 2 in Al-Shuja'iyya, and 2 more in Beit Hanun following heavy shelling. Gaza's health ministry reported on Tuesday that occupation attacks killed 51 Palestinians and wounded 113 in the past 24 hours alone, as the enclave's total death toll surpassed 52,365 since the Zionist war of extermination began. The recent escalation since March 18 alone has claimed 2,273 lives and left 5,864 injured, as hospitals grapple with mounting casualties amid crippled medical infrastructure. In Palestine still, at least 3 Palestinians, including 3 children and a woman, were killed in Zionist attacks overnight, targeting a home in Khan Younis and a displacement tent in Al-Mawasi area. The strikes add to Gaza's mounting civilian toll as Zionist offensive continues. More on this story with Sufyan Kanturi now.
Relatives gathered at Nasser Hospital to bid final farewell to the victims before funeral prayers. Among the dead were 3 children and a woman, killed in 2 overnight Zionist airstrikes, one on a home in Khan Younis, the other in a tent in the Mawasi area.
They were sleeping. The children had dinner and went to bed early. Around midnight, we were woken by the explosion. The neighboring area was bombed. All of the child siblings were severely injured, and little Saba was killed. Children have become the main target. Enough genocide. Enough. Until when? Why?
Since the start of the conflict, women and children have made up the majority of those killed in Gaza. Survivors are left devastated.
What can I say? And who will listen? What's the point in speaking anymore? We've been talking for 2 years and no one responds. No one feels anything for us. Let's just keep our pain to ourselves. There is no one left in the family. They're all gone.
Zionist forces resumed its aggression on Gaza on March 18th, after a 2-month pause following a ceasefire agreement. Since then, all imports, including food and medicine, have been blocked from a place where 2 million residents live, triggering an unprecedented humanitarian crisis.
In a related story, public hearings on the obligations of the Zionist occupation towards the United Nations and its agencies in the occupied Palestinian territories continue for a second day in The Hague. 38 countries, including Algeria and South Africa, presented their cases alongside the League of Arab States, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and the African Union. The hearings, running from April 28 to May 2nd, have seen participation from 44 countries and 4 international organizations. Algeria condemned the Zionist occupation efforts to obstruct the work of UNRWA relief organizations and civilian rescue operations. In a speech delivered by Maya Sahli Fadel, former vice chairperson of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, during the second day of the International Court of Justice hearings, Algeria called these actions a violation of international law.
The massacre of Palestinian medics, which was widely condemned around the world, passed in silence and without accountability, allowing the Israeli occupation to continue committing further massacres against Palestinian women and children. From this platform, Algeria reminds the international community that the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza, the blockade on humanitarian aid, and the undermining of the UN agency UNRWA are being used by Israel as weapons of war, a clear violation of international laws and norms by a member state of the United Nations.
Algeria's envoy at the International Court of Justice urged swift humanitarian aid access to Gaza to alleviate the Palestinian suffering. Let's take a listen again.
Algeria urgently calls for the lifting of the ban on the UN agency UNRWA and for facilitating its work to deliver humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip, which is experiencing a dire worsening situation. UNRWA is the sole authorized entity capable of delivering and providing essential humanitarian assistance to the Palestinians.
Additionally, the former vice president of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights warned of the health and humanitarian toll of the occupation siege on Gaza, pointing to critical shortages of medicine and medical supplies.
Outre les violations du droit international humanitaire,
In addition to its ongoing violations of international treaties and human rights, Israel obstructs the work of the United Nations and international organizations in the occupied territories, chiefly by preventing the entry of humanitarian aid. These practices are part of an occupation policy aimed at sustaining its unlawful presence in Palestine, effectively granting itself the authority to exclude UNRWA without regard for the rights of the Palestinian people.
In the same context, Algeria's UN representative Amir criticized the international community for failing to act, saying it has allowed the Zionist entity to use mass displacement as a strategy. Speaking at a UN Security Council session on the Middle East, he condemned the ongoing policies of ethnic cleansing, collective punishment, and systematic destruction of Palestinian lives.
The absence of collective action, the lack of accountability, and the double standards have emboldened the Israeli occupier to act with total impunity, total immunity. Today, we find ourselves at a critical juncture, and we must ask ourselves, when will our word be translated into action? When will the resolution of this very Security Council be finally enforced? When will international law cease to be a tool selectively applied? When will the dignity, the rights, humanity of the Palestinian people finally be respected? Mr. President, for over 18 months, the people of Palestine, particularly in Gaza, have endured unspeakable horrors, mass killings, mass starvation, mass displacement, and mass destruction. Abandoned and defenseless, the Palestinian people face one of the most ruthless occupying forces in the world.
All the way to Morocco now, Moroccan anti-normalization activists have warned of growing Zionist influence in the country's universities, describing it as a deep and alarming infiltration. Activist Hidayah Waldmouh Sadiq, writing on the Moroccan Justice and Charity Youth website, said campuses are becoming breeding grounds for harmful ideas spread through various clubs and networks amid ongoing normalization efforts.
Zionism has succeeded deservedly and effectively in penetrating Moroccan universities and deeply embedding itself within them, surpassing all boundaries. It has considered these institutions a breeding ground for spreading its malicious ideas through both known and unknown arms and clubs. New security approaches have been imposed in the context of normalization, under which Moroccan students have experienced various forms of bans, restrictions, and repression through the spreading of fear to silence the voice of truth and prevent it from being spoken.
The Moroccan activists affirm that students have not and will not back down in their support for the Palestinian cause.
Nevertheless, these students refuse to be anything but a strong barrier in the face of this fierce onslaught, Students have also devoted themselves and their time to the just causes of their nation. Students have not and will not give up on supporting their essential cause and backing its defenders until the liberation of the last inch of occupied Palestinian land.
On a similar note, Moroccan labor organizations have strongly urged the government to immediately cancel its normalization agreement with the Zionist entity and cease all forms of cooperation. In a statement released on Tuesday, the Moroccan Labor Union reaffirmed its absolute rejection of normalization with the Zionist occupation, stressing that such policies contradict the fundamental rights of the Palestinian people.
We reaffirm our absolute rejection of the policy of normalization with the Zionist entity, which contradicts the values of human solidarity and does not align with support for the existential rights of the brotherly Palestinian people. We demand the immediate termination of the normalization agreement and all forms of interaction with this usurping entity.
Turning to the war in Ukraine, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov dismissed Ukraine's call for a 30-day ceasefire, stating Russia would not agree without resolving core disputes. He emphasized Moscow's commitment to direct negotiations while accusing Kiev of repeatedly ignoring diplomatic overtures from President Vladimir Putin.
Putin was the one who showed a gesture of goodwill and announced yesterday that a temporary ceasefire would be declared on Victory Day. We have not heard any response from the Kiev regime so far. We expect Putin's peace initiative to be evaluated. We haven't heard any assessment from European capitals, nor have we heard any assessment from Ukraine.
For his part, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia of manipulation after Vladimir Putin declared a temporary truce. In a Telegram video address, Zelensky dismissed Moscow's announced a ceasefire from May 8 to 11 as another deceptive tactic. He insisted that genuine diplomacy requires an immediate, full, and unconditional 30-day ceasefire with enforceable guarantees.
Russia has consistently rejected all of this and manipulated the world, trying to deceive the United States. Now, once again, there is another attempt in manipulation. For some reason, everyone is supposed to wait until May 8th and only then ceasefire in order to provide Putin with silence during the period.
And in the latest updates on this file, Dmitry Medvedev, deputy chairperson of Russia's Security Council, issued a stark nuclear warning to new NATO members, declaring that Moscow could launch preemptive strikes in response to Western forced peace efforts. In remarks carried by TASS, he asserted that any foreign troops sent to Ukraine would become legitimate targets, dismissing the current U.S. administration's hesitant attempts to revive negotiations as ineffective.
Let's be honest, not a single country has enhanced its security as a result of joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The best examples of this are Poland, the Baltic states, and more recently Finland and Sweden. They are now part of a bloc that is hostile toward us, which means they have automatically become targets for our armed forces, including possible retaliatory strikes and perhaps even nuclear ones, or preventive measures in accordance with the Russian military doctrine.
Moving on to other topical news, but this time in Sudan, the army said 41 civilians, including women and children, were killed and dozens wounded in an RSF artillery attack on Al Fasher, North Darfur's capital. In a Tuesday statement, the Army's 6th Infantry Division claimed it repelled the assault, inflicting heavy RSF losses, nearly 600 fighters dead and over 25 military vehicles destroyed. To another topical news story, in Pakistan and India borders, Pakistan State TV reported that its military downed an Indian spy drone along the contested Kashmir border. Security sources said the drone crossed the line of control in Kashmir's Bahimir sector, a flashpoint between the nuclear-armed rivals. To a different news story, over 50,000 Los Angeles healthcare workers launched a massive strike Tuesday after contract negotiations collapsed. Public Service Workers Union President David Green vowed to intensify protests condemning poor working conditions and labor law violations. The walkout has disrupted most major medical facilities across the region.
The strike came in response to the failure of negotiations with the country over a new labor contract after the previous one expired last March. These are the workers who guided Los Angeles County through multiple crises from the January wildfires to health, mental health and social emergencies. For this reason, we will no longer tolerate violations of labor laws, and we demand respect for all workers.
And that's the end of our news program for tonight. Thank you for watching. Good night.